So welcome everybody to the Castro Tenants Convention! The convention is sponsored by the Housing Rights Committee, the Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Club, District 8 Democrats, Eviction Free San Francisco, and the AIDS Housing Alliance. Our purpose today is twofold. First and foremost, to hear from all of you about ideas on how to fight the evictions and gentrification that is changing our neighborhoods and ways to organize that fight. And secondly, to come up with a proposal for a ballot initiative this November. This convention is part of a series of neighborhood conventions spearheaded by the Anti-Displacement Coalition, a coalition of housing and tenants' rights organizations. On February 8th, I'm going to play Vanna White. On February 8th, there will be a citywide convention, which will be after all the local neighborhood conventions. February 8th, 1 to 4 p.m. at 350 Rhode Island, which is SEIU headquarters.
Okay, so let's go over to the center, because we want to make sure that folks over here get heard.
So I want to see more affordable home ownership for the tenants. My building bought eviction and we bought the building. And so I want to see the Board of Supervisors refund, put money back into the real ownership opportunities for tenants, and also the small sites acquisition fund, so that nonprofits and land trusts can step in and buy these properties when they're being put on the market and save them and protect them as affordable forever for everybody, future generations.
Okay, I think that we should push more housing down the peninsula in Silicon Valley. There needs to be a wider dialogue with the cities down there about whether they're doing their job in actually encouraging people to want to live there. And I mean, early on, you sort of were quite dismissive about the causes of this problem, but I actually think we do need to take a step back and take a really hard look at what's driving this. And, if indeed it is Silicon Valley and people from Silicon Valley wanting to live in San Francisco, then you need to think about what you can do to help these people down there. I mean, is it that, Silicon Valley is completely void of cultural stuff that people want to live in Silicon Valley? Here, in which case, let's look at that.
So the solution is to make Silicon Valley more desirable to live.
Just to flesh that out a bit more, a dialogue with the cities down the peninsula.
Thank you.
I have two proposals. One of them is to put a moratorium on all luxury housing development until 10,000 new lower and middle income units become available on the market. And the second one is to add a vacancy tax to all units that have been vacant for 6 months or longer.
Yep, I think we have that actually already. That's a great one.
Instead of this just being a San Francisco...
Wait, can we pause for 1 second? I just want to make sure we're getting everything down. We did put that down.
We have that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Prohibiting landlords from leaving units empty.
Empty, and we said tax next to it?
Tax them.
How are you doing on writing? Should I slow it down a little bit?
We're doing okay.
Okay, just
It's messy, but we're
Okay,
working on
two
it.
things. One, this shouldn't just be a San Francisco thing. This needs to be a Bay Area event. So the legislation just doesn't impacts all of our counties. So I'd like to see this at all the counties surrounding San Francisco. Additionally, increasing the diversity of housing within a development to include not just below market rate, but low income, below market rate, middle income, and then market rate.
Okay, so I want to actually couple that, if we can, with enforce, where do we have close inclusionary zoning loopholes to include on-site housing and I'll say diverse housing.
Can I just...
And can we say higher percent too? I keep hearing that one, and so can we put them all together as one?
Higher.
Sir, when you couple the land trust and pension funding, those are two separate ideas.
Okay.
One is funding, one is ownership.
Okay, thank you. Where is that? Right here. So I'll make a separate bulletin point down here.
Yeah,
For
and we'll put permanent housing over here, we put land trust right there.
Okay.
That would tell that.
Is that okay? The land trust of cooperative housing?
No, to me, it's like the two.
Okay, we'll make a separate one down here for land trust.
Some fairly radical things. Instead of fines for violating laws like forfeiture of property, number 2, more aggressive acquisition of rental properties by the city and to have them rented out on a percentage of income basis. Number 3, include no income along with no income in, I guess, general, just the term no income. And the last one, a residency requirement that anyone who owns property in the city must be a resident of the city and must reside on that property, and that's the only property they own.
Okay, wait, let's get all these up first, because there was just 3 that came out of that.
All right, so I only got 2. I got get the city to acquire property and rent out to low income, which is a simplification of what you said. You had a better idea, but I think I captured it. And then only residents can rent in the city.
Right, and that's the only income they own, and they have to reside in that property.
Should be a
They have and must reside in and must reside in.
And then also forfeiture of property for violating law.
One of the things that San Francisco can do with the Ellis Act is the city, the Board of Supervisors can set the statutory relocation fee, which is now around $5,000. In 1971, the federal government enacted a statutory relocation fee if you're evicted by a federal project, which is the difference between your current rent and market rent in the same neighborhood for 4 years. If we adopted the 1971 federal standard as our statutory Ellis Act relocation, it's been tested, it's held up in court, we would have not only a huge impact, but tenants would actually get real displacement money.
It's a top 1971 federal relocation fee.
By the Board of Supervisors, we can do this locally
Okay.
for Ellis activations.
ISFBOS.
I would like to see a serious, ongoing, funny publicity campaign about the social costs of displacement, including individual stories.
So political theater, let's call it that. Political theater on displacement.
It's a broad sense of theater.
Publicity in general.
Theater,
Plus publicity on displacement.
Okay.
In the future, we're still gonna have problems with population increasing. So Silicon Valley needs to assume some of the burden to do that, we need to put pressure on our local lawmakers here, right here in the city, the Board of Supervisors, to put pressure on Santa Clara County to relax some of their building code restrictions and their affordable housing requirements. Which I think that's a huge part of the problem. Thank you.
Oh, Denise.
Someone that wants to pay a fee instead of offering below market rate housing, I think we should pressure City Hall to prohibit them from doing that, from accepting that fee, and demand that they offer that housing. Secondly, I'd love to see some educational materials that we could distribute in the community, including but not limited to folks in the city from tech, about how to be a good neighbor, how to support local businesses, and maybe support local businesses and displaying how long they've been in business so people can support longer term businesses in the city.
That's great. I'll get back to you.
Those illegal units, I'd like to see them legalized and make them rent control.
Make sure you put units and make them under rent control. Many of the plans to legalize those units don't put them under rent control, so make sure you put that in. Okay.
I'm not really sure how to fund it, but there's 33 acres of a Trail Hill that's completely underutilized as a housing project. The city says they have the money for it. I think the BMR fund, I don't think it's actually being used. Maybe it could be applied to something like that. I think the politicians over there don't have the interest in getting it done.
So I'm writing build affordable housing on 33 acres of Trail Hill.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap start off with these few and then put them here and one there, so.
Okay, I actually work in the tech industry. I'm one of those, evil ones who actually live here and come there. But I was thinking it might be a good idea to tax us for folks who actually live here but don't work here, or something like that. Some sort of additional thing we can actually provide to the community, even though we don't work in San Francisco.
So tax on SF residents who don't work in SF.
Correct, yeah. Or work in Silicon Valley.
So I would like to supplement the idea earlier about the 4-year payment for movement, for displacement costs, because so many people are worried about transparency and the inequality in the way tenants are treated. Somebody might have a really great lawyer, and we're all kind of divided often by the new buyer because they offer different amounts of money. I would like to see everybody in the building who's put money into the building as a tenant receive the tenancy value that they've been paying to upkeep the building for all these years. We pay a security deposit, so it's kind of like you're taking care of somebody's dog. Right now, it looks like they're doing us the favor, but a contract is 2 ways. If you take care of a dog for 25 years and suddenly the dog is a show dog, then you should be paid for the value that you put into the care of that dog. You know? So somebody who's been there for 20 years might be owing $180,000, and to me that's fair. When you actually add up the cost of what somebody would be paid, they would, the prospective buyers would still be making over $2 million on these buildings. And we would get fair value for our tenancies. Thank you.
Okay, I'm cutting out the stack. The gentleman in the blue. What's your name? Frank. And then there's one in the back, and those are the 3 we're gonna do. And how many?
Okay, 3 quick ones. First, I'd really like to publicize the hell out of the citywide tenants convention, including a very obvious invitation to the mayor to attend it, because he should really hear what our concerns are, since he doesn't listen to us, he listens to Ron Conway. Secondly, I want to make sure that it's clear that there's something more about the below market rate housing must include people that actually live in the city and have a professional job, but are making too much money to be eligible. We make a livable wage, but we're excluded from below market rate housing, and we don't make anywhere near enough to be considered to buy something or to be eligible for a loan.
Okay, so I'm wondering with that one, if we could attach that onto distinguish between market rate and low income and just generally expand eligibility.
I actually want to sort of pull out that. I'm hearing 2 different things. We need a lot more super low income and no income housing, and on the other hand, we don't have enough mid-income housing, and I think that we don't want to make them compete against each other.
Right.
Why are we only saying 15% of these developments in our neighborhood have to be anything besides super rich? Like maybe we need to look at what that number is and make and people are talking about making it on site. Like I really want to make sure we're not competing low income and mid income people, which seems to be what we're doing, while the rich get everything they want when it comes to housing.
Being pit against each other.
So I'm trying to capture that by just putting this all under the umbrella of expand eligibility.
Okay.
Does that work?
And we also talked about, it's also covered under inclusionary loophole.
Yeah.
And finally, I'd like to see lobbying of the DCCC. Some kind of persistent presence, because those people that guide what the party does, and they run this city, every politician is a Democrat, and they all listen to the
lobbying for tenants at DCCC.
Somebody mentioned the Airbnb, and in my case, that's my problem. So I think that we should either include that in the legislation or make a committee that makes them more accountable, because once I went to terms and conditions in the website, they just wash their hands. They say, oh, we're providing a service. In my case, they're providing a disservice to the tenants, and I think we should really get together and fight that, because it's the start of a new way of evicting people.
Look at marriage equality. I think there's a larger theme here that we need to, and I don't know how to articulate this, that's an umbrella, but you know, classism and the social whole etiquette of, oh, do you rent or do you own? You know, there's a whole movement of our fortifying classism through the way we treat one another and we engage one another socially. I think it needs to be stated and specifically worked out so that we can become known as a city that is anti-economic inequality. I don't know what the words are, but we need to use a larger umbrella theme that really looks at the issues of economic inequalities as a democracy. And how can we amplify that movement here in our city?
So, if I put build alliances between owners and renters, does that, to address classism, does that sum up your comment?
One of the larger social issues in our whole democracy around economic inequality is just one symbol of that larger inequality.
Okay.
Find out those things that people thought could be local legislation, so it's going to be a little difficult. So Gus is going to be trying to do that in the background here. And we're going to try to add in some of the things that people have talked about in other conventions for legislation, just so that we're all on the same page. So while Gus is trying to pull out some of the legislative possibilities, we're going to do two things. Just so people know where we're heading right now in this meeting. So the next step is we are going to do two things. Today we're going to break down into some groups to talk about how to make some of these things really happen. It's nice we came up with some amazing ideas, but someone's not magically going to do these amazing ideas for us. If we don't step up and save our communities, no one's doing it. I mean, there's amazing tenant rights groups all through the city, but they're all at maximum capacity. So unless we're in the streets trying to get ballot measures passed, or trying to fight a developer that we want 50% affordable housing on their site, that if we're not doing it, it doesn't mean shit, like, frankly. And so, we're going to try to be doing that for the next section, but to lead up to that, the other section of things that are happening is at the citywide convention. I'm going to talk first a little bit about the citywide convention. What's going to happen at the citywide convention is the top-rated suggestions from all of these conventions. They're going on, they already happened in Chinatown, they already happened in Mission and Excelsior, they're going to happen in
North Beach?
Yeah, they happened in North Beach, next they're happening in Richmond, Haight, Western Addition, and then in SOMA and TL this month. But at the citywide convention, which you are all welcome to attend, it's in a place much bigger than this, at the SEIU 10-1 Union Hall. We are going to take the top rated ideas. And so we're going to have you got little stickers. The stars are for laws. You're going to rate you get one vote that you think would fix the problem and you would get out and work on. Then we're going to secondly have you rate ideas which are more action ideas. And we're going to break down, and we're going to take 3 of those and talk about how to make them happen in small groups. So we don't do things like this, we're sort of making it up as we go along. So bear with us. At the citywide convention, what's going to come out of the citywide convention? The top rated suggestions out of this group and out of all the other conventions are going to go to the citywide convention. They're going to have a bunch of lawyers, some other long-term tenant advocates, try to write them in law form. And then they're going to present them to the tenants convention. And then at the tenant convention, citywide tenant convention, people all over the city are going to pick what they want to try to put on the ballot. And we want a law that's actually going to pass the courts. Why spend hundreds of hours for something that's going to get thrown out? But that doesn't mean it can't be radical, it can't be pushing the edge. So we're really, and one thing I'm going to talk about, people brought up, and there's some folks from the Streetlight group Tenants Together who rock in the room. So if I'm not a lawyer or a counselor, and so I'm doing my best at explaining the most simple way I can explain these really fucked up state laws that stop us from doing a lot of what we need to do here. Can I read that? My handwriting is a mess too. Okay, so first is the Ellis Act. Everyone here has run into the Ellis Act somewhere. Someone you know has been Ellis Acted. It is this messed up law that says a landlord can get out of the rental business by emptying their building. They can get around rent control. They just have to do these minor things that we pass in San Francisco. It doesn't matter how many times they get in the rental business. It doesn't matter if they bought the building last week. They can get out of the rental business over and over and over. And there's some big speculators who've been doing it for years and now are doing it now all the time. That's a state law. There's a bunch of little things we can do locally to tweak it. Some of them came up. But tenants together and tenants groups are looking at taking it on at the state level of trying to make it so it can't do what it's doing now. Originally they claimed it was only for like the old landlord who didn't want to rent out the units in his buildings anymore. And, we think he got in the business anyways, but, let's see what we can pass. And so people are talking about a 5-year moratorium, that you have to actually own your building for 5 years before you Ellis Act it. That would take out most of the Ellis Acts that are happening right now. Because landlords aren't Ellis Acting, speculators are Ellis Acting. They buy a building, take people out. So, that is a state thing. We're going to put that on the local action thing, so if you want to vote for that's the thing that you want to work on, we can make a breakout group around that. We're going to look at it, but we're only going to deal legislatively with laws we can pass in San Francisco. Because, frankly, I wish we could pass up more things statewide, but that involves creating a much bigger movement than we have. And we have to build that movement. The second one is this law called Costa-Hawkins. It's really complicated. They passed it in the early 90s. And it basically says that they can't have rent control. We can't pass a local law on certain things. And so we can't have rent control on single-family homes or condos. One of the problems with them. We can't have rent control on things built after 78.
79.
Do I have it right? 79?
79.
Sorry, 79. That whole thing with master tenants, that if the tenant who has tenancy in a unit moves out, then the landlord can raise it as much as they want. Or if all the tenants move out, the landlord can raise it as much as they want. So we can't have real rent control. That means all rents only go up with inflation. Vacancy control. There's some little local things we can do around vacancies that are sort of the loopholes on that. And those are those two. That doesn't mean we can't not imagine these things, but when some of the things are coming up for local legislation, it makes it harder to do, or you have to do a lot of legal finagling. So when we are kind of looking at things a certain way, I think that those things everyone should know what's state and local. It makes the conversation easier. Because when people are like, why have the Board of Supervisors and the mayors banning the Ellis Act? We're like, well, that's a state law. Did I get anything dreadfully wrong? Okay, great.
We did marriage, and that was a federal law.
Yeah.
We did marriage, and we said in San Francisco, we're going to do it. So the fact is, as a city, Scott's in the room, we've done it before, we can do it again. And then
Yeah. Politicians can try direct action, knowing it will get overthrown. And I'm not saying that that isn't the case, and I think that's actually a great idea. Tell me when you're ready, because I'm going to, in a moment, throw out a couple ones that didn't hit the list, and you can tell me.
Go for it.
Well, actually, let me talk.
Sorry, I just want to add on that, on the state stuff, which I think is more expected. There are, on these Ellis Act, there are certain things that the city can do, so some of these ideas that touch on
Some of these ideas that touch on Ellis Act evictions, like Tim's idea about passing much stronger relocation payments, or a gentleman on the other side of the room was talking about TIC conversions. That there are things, we can't directly ban Ellis Act evictions through legislation in San Francisco. If you want to help do that, join us in our fight at the state level, which I hope everyone will do. But there are local pieces that can take away some of the incentives for Ellis Act evictions and can mitigate the impact on tenants.
Perfect. And that's Dean Preston from the statewide group Tenants Together. Look them up, they're amazing. So there's a couple things that are actually either we've passed recently that came up on the list. That one of them is the stopping mergers, conversions, and other things needing a city okay after a no-fault eviction like an Ellis Act. So Jeremy Michael's landlord, who took 3 units, who wanted to Ellis Act it and then turn all 3 units back into a mansion and sell it as a single-family home, they can't do that anymore. So one success. There's been some minor harassment legislation passed. It's not strong enough, but there's some really good things in it. Harassment is a huge way people are being evicted. That Supervisor David Campos, who is amazing, who is proposing 2 laws in the coming weeks that folks should know about, because they should turn out, they should pressure their various supervisors to vote for them. One of them is to change the base for relocation money to really do the rent differential between apartments, the persons being displaced from to new ones. We could ask for even stronger. He's talking about doing that legislation. Making buyouts a form of eviction that has to be recorded. Right now, there's no record of a buyout. So when a landlord says, and the reality is we see a huge percent of people take a buyout because they feel like there's no other choice. They're not like, wow, I love the money because I really was thinking about moving to Seattle anyways. They go to a lawyer, they say there's no way to fight your Ellis Act, and we're finding that ain't so true anymore. We're winning in Ellis Act fights in the streets.